Good evening, everybody! It is Monday, October the 24th, 2019. This is your Mr. Video Game Live Super Show, as brought to you by Dead Sun Entertainment. Clap your hands, say yeah. Everyone's excited to be here. Absolutely everyone is having a good time. It is Mr. Video Games. Of course, I'm Slacker Kite, here to be the moderator for another episode of Mr. Video Games. And joining us as well, coming back our routine people, he put the hot back in hot takes. It's Brian, a.k.a. Wonderboy.
So hot. I got something about fire, but it's not really working for me right now. There's things going on. What's up? I missed last week because I was a dunce. And I feel terrible about that, so I'm gonna try to make up for that with as much rage for 2 weeks. I'm not a rage person. I call it like I see it, and I'm pretty sure there's plenty of stuff from this past week that's going to make me call things the way that I see them.
And of course, let's face it, she's not reading gaming news. She's too busy refreshing the Canadian poll numbers. It's Lindsay, a.k.a. Lady Merowyn.
I am reading gaming news, but I am also anxiously refreshing the poll numbers. But I am reading gaming news. I promise. I'm doing both. I can multitask.
Isn't an election just a very elaborate game?
Yeah, but this game is gonna, determine peoplehood status for women, so...
It's a scary one, yeah.
Yeah, I can understand that. Totally, there's not anything happening right now in a certain building that could affect the status of how the world sees me, or at least this country sees me. I'm not trying to take away from the Canadian elections. I'm just saying I have a very large existential crisis going on right now because of the Supreme Court.
We will panic together, Brian. We will panic together.
Panic party everywhere.
Yeah, with, the Brexit fuck-ups and the Canadian election and, all of the meltdown going on in America, it's a good time to talk about video games, isn't it?
Yes, take my mind off of this. Take me to my happy place.
And, of course, I put the link to the Discord on the Twitch page now for Dead Sun Entertainment. Just in case you want to join us after the stream, and I'll mention it a few times. I figure why not start actually, promoting ourselves just a little bit.
Well, we started adding new rooms to the Discord, so I think that's a good time to start inviting people in.
Yeah. So y'all ready to get started, talk about the games we've been playing?
Yes.
Alright. I'm just gonna go ahead and go first because, man, this game is dumb as hell, and it's wonderfully dumb. I have been playing Ring Fit Adventure, and it is a game to do the sweaty times with. Unlike the Wii Fit, it is not a thing that you can fake your way through and just pretend to be doing to get all the points. The game will make damn sure that you are doing the thing. It's got this little ring that you shove one of your switches into, and it seems to know when you compress and decompress the ring, and where it is above your head, to your side. As well, you have to wear a little garter belt around your left leg while you're doing it, so it knows if you're running or not, and how high you're lifting that leg. Now, I'm going to tell you right off the bat, the game was a little finicky to me at first. It took me like 20 minutes trying to get it set up to begin with. It should be real simple, but it tweren't. It decided for like 15 minutes to sit there and say, trying to calibrate the ring. Please put this on a level ground. And it's on one of them. I promise you. It's on my table. Everything's fine. And then suddenly it just started working. So I'm good with that. You also start off the game with about 5 minutes of cutscene, which is surprising for a Nintendo Fitness game. There is a giant monster that you accidentally unleash upon the world, and it is a glorious Chad monster and a unitard, and he's a pretty boy. And all he wants to do is work out and destroy the world. Those are his only two things in life.
It looks like Brian Cage.
I was thinking a little more retro and going with Kurt Angle, but yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely both mixed together.
So, and yeah, basically, you can do some exercise moves to attack enemies. To get through a level, you're on rails, so you have to do a little bit of running. But while you're running, you can hold out your ring and compress it to shoot air, and then squeeze it out in order to like pull things in. And you can also use that same move to jump in the air and hover. It is a strange fucking game, but the absolute best thing about this game to me by far is the fact that the experience bar are your gains. I'm for it. This is some dumb, weird, cutesy shit. If you are in need of an actual workout and something to make you do your thing, this will do it, and you will be very tired when you're done, and everything will burn, because the game makes you do everything. You think you can cheat your way through it, and I tried real damn hard. I was yelling at the game by the end of it, calling it all sorts of names.
I'm actually really curious about this. I'm glad that you were able to get some hands on with it, because like, I showed this to my partner, this thing, and like this could be sort of dumb fun now that we have a Switch, and also we've been trying to get back into working out recently, and like we both looked at this like maybe, like, because I immediately jumped back to the Wii Fit and how you were able to game that thing so easily, and also my personal frustrations with the balance board with that thing, because I could never get it to like realize that I was actually standing correctly, like with my weight distribution, but it never recognized that I had my correct weight distribution, so it made me stand in a very awkward way, and I just immediately fell out of favor with it. So this, like, I'm all for something that's going to motivate me to get some sweet gains, and like this actually looks interesting.
Yeah, being a larger gentleman, the Wii Fit board never really wanted to work with me. This one seems to be fine, other than it's a little weird wearing a garter belt, but, you get used to it.
Mm-hmm. You do.
Fair enough. Lindsay, I hear you've been playing some games too.
Yes, I have been playing Winkeltier.
All right.
I'm praying I pronounced that right. It's actually Dutch for the little shop.
Okay.
It's in early access on Steam right now, and honestly, it doesn't need to be early access. Literally, it is like Moonlighter, which I've talked about before, without the dungeoneering. Pretty much the story is you are the daughter of a family that has been given the gift of taking over the family's shop in order to bring it out of debt and to restore your family's good name in this town. So you'll have traders that come in that allow you to purchase more supplies to sell. You can actually career path in it, so you can become like a blacksmith or a cook or a tailor or a farmer, and that'll affect what you can sell in the game. Once you get into that crafting aspect of it, the more you craft certain items, the higher quality they become. Um, it's really cute. It's really peaceful. I lost probably about 4 hours to it today and didn't realize it. And your seasons are going to affect your pricing, like what your product will sell for, what you can buy it for. There's random events like within the first 2 days of starting this game, I got a pop up saying, hey, the country is at war. This, and this are going to be more expensive. Um, there's harvest festivals. There are bandits that will affect the number of traders that come into your shop. It's management. You can expand it, you decorate it, you organize it the way you want it to. Like, it's a really nice management game and it is super polished. I highly, highly, highly recommend checking it out. It's by a little company called SassBot. So yay, yay, indie games. At the end of your days, you can use your little counter there in order to purchase more supplies, although it's often cheaper waiting for traders to come in, but they don't always necessarily have what you need. But it is so worth it, and it's just a really good Zen time stink. Um, just cannot recommend it enough.
All right, and Brian, not to forget, I believe you've been doing some things as well the last week.
I have. Real quick though, I do have a question. Do they always drop the money on the floor every time they buy something?
Yeah, they do. It's like, hi, thanks for buying this stuff. Yeah, no, no, go ahead, just throw your money on the floor. I'll pick it up. I'll pick it up.
Because Jesus Christ, that would be so just
And
liberating for me to just walk into a store and just throw money on the ground and walk out with my shit.
well, and the thing is too is like once you've expanded your shop and once it gets busier because you've gotten more popular, it is a pain and a half to keep up because you have to restock each of your tables, each of your displays individually, and you have to collect that money as it goes. And I hope later on I get the ability to hire like an assistant who's just going to run around and restock shit for me. Um, but if not,
Having assistants always kind of nice.
That's pretty cool. I like how that. I don't know. It just intrigued me. um. Anyway, so yeah, so I've been playing a few things. Um. So I finally beat Fire Emblem. Which was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
I is it far enough out from that game's release that I can like basically spoil part of the ending or at least one of the endings in that game?
I think so, as long as it's not, anything like that would kill the game for somebody, I think.
Okay, then I'm gonna hold off then because I wanted to yell something very, very loud that does basically like it is the very last thing in the game. It's like,
I was
yo,
gonna say like if it's on the level of Luke, I am your father. Probably not.
no, it's okay. Put it this way, I did something that was very, very gratifying to me personally in my own personal life in that game, and it made me very happy.
Cool.
Yes, I've already started my New Game Plus playthrough, going through a different house this time. That game goes places in a lot of ways. I know like Fire Emblem has a reputation for being mainly about like shipping characters along with tactics, but like the story in Three Houses really does go some places, and I would suggest anyone, obviously if you're already interested in it, you've probably already beaten it, but anyone that hasn't picked it up yet, definitely check that out. But the other game that I've just started dipping my toe into is this thing right in front of us here, uh, Disco Elysium. So this is a sort of like it's an RPG, but the control system is very point and clicky. It feels a lot like a point and click adventure game most of the time.
Okay.
It's basically set in this future world. It doesn't necessarily give you the period. It just says like something 51. So it could be like a different version, 1951. It could be 2051, whatever. You play this dude who's waking up. He is a
Ooh.
cop. You wake up. You do not remember your name. You don't remember your job. You don't remember all any of your stuff is, and like you're basically in this world trying to figure out who you are. And then there's also this murder mystery that you're trying to solve. There's basically a body that is hanging from a tree outside of a shop, and you have been charged with solving the murder. And so you are going through this world trying to recover all of the things that you lost, not just like your memories but also like your actual items like your gun and your badge, as well as trying to unravel what's going on with this murder mystery. And then a bunch of other stuff happens. I was drawn to this game immediately because of the art style. Like the portraits themselves kind of reminded me of Transistor in some ways. A little bit of the art style in game reminded me of Transistor a little bit, but this is no Transistor in any way, shape, or form. This game is heavy on the text, heavy on writing. This is like, if you enjoy writing in games, this is going to be something that you can easily sink your teeth into. The developers of this game basically said, like, no, you're going to spend 60 hours in this game. Like, right off the bat, like, you are going to spend 60 hours and you're not going to see everything your first playthrough. Like, because, like, basically the story can branch off in so many different ways based off of interactions with characters and how you treat other people within the world. Because this game allows you to be, whether you allows you to kind of exist on any place of the morality spectrum, I would say. Like if you like, it presents you many different chances to engage in like racist and homophobic acts. Like there are people that yell homophobic slurs at you at times. There are people that are blatantly racist at times, and you can take your character in that direction, but it also kind of takes you to the logical conclusion of what that character might become, or how that character might, what place that character might find themselves within this world, within this story. All that being said, like it has a very, very cynical, nihilist overtone to it.
Delightful.
Yeah. Which I eat that sort of, not necessarily cynicism, but I eat nihilism up all the time. Like I love a story that knows how to tell something good within a nihilist structure, if that makes any sense. And so this game, like, it has a very like social commentary feel to it, and that honestly kind of boils into a lot of the people that are involved with the game. I know that some of the dudes from Chapo Trap House actually lend their voice to some characters in this game. So like, yes, if like I understand anybody's hangups with those dudes, like so just fair warning, like if that's sort of colors some things here.
Okay.
But outside of that, like it's super engrossing at times. Like, and it can get bogged down in its text. It can get bogged down in its like world building sometimes, just from what I've seen so far, which isn't a ton. But at the same time, like there's a lot of craft that has gone into this game, and I think that if you're looking for something that has something to say at multiple levels, and something that's going to keep delivering on that the more you play it, like so far that's what I'm getting from Disco Elysium. That being said, though, like if you are like not into that's the sort of tone that this game carries, like I completely understand, and I would probably say don't spend your $40. like this is that through and through. This is just like dark, everything sucks, you know, sort of style thing going on, and it doesn't really appear like it's going to come out of that anytime soon.
Yeah, you gotta love a game though that challenges you on a level though like this. So to me, I kind of like that. Like something that will make me feel a little cringy. Just kind of like, do I want? Okay, let's do it.
Yeah, and also to the game's credit, like it'll like I talked about how it allows you to like choose whether you want to be like how shitty you want to be,
Mhm.
for lack of a better term. But the game like it's interesting in that a lot of your character's impulses are to engage in some of the more problematic behavior,
Mhm.
but you can choose not to, and it seems to make it. In some ways, it makes things more difficult, but at the same time, like it's almost like you're retraining this person's brain. It's almost as if in some ways, it feels a little bit like a simulator of like trying to pull someone's opinions out of the muck and help them understand the world as a like community, as opposed to just like someone who is very or very exclusionary to other communities and other people. So in that way, like it's really interesting to me, and I want to see how that develops. Um, but yeah, like there's definitely some stuff in here that like trigger warning to all hell. They do like static out some of the words. So like say like there's some characters that like yell homophobic slurs at you. They don't actually write out the words.
Good,
It's
good.
like yeah, so like they do obscure that stuff. So it's not like straight up. We're not just doing it for shock value. It's basically like we're trying to. In some ways they are, but it's not straight up. We're just saying the word so we can write the word and be like, look at the word, look at it. So like you know, it's they do treat it with some elements of care, but at the same time they are not pulling any punches with what is in this game. With that stuff and beyond just the story in general. So
All right.
yeah, it's super intriguing, and I hope to dig more into it, or dig into it more this week.
Cool. So, shall we jump into the story that's basically dominated the game's media for the last week?
You talking about that goose showing up in Resident Evil 2?
Oh, absolutely. Of course, the goose showing up in Resident Evil 2.
Yeah, that goose on fire, and it got that fedora. Only goose ever pull off that fedora. Damn it, we gotta talk about this shit. All right.
Yeah. So, it started off kind of innocuous at the beginning of last week. Nintendo decided to or really it seems more like Blizzard decided to cancel the event at Nintendo NYC building uh, to have the launch of Overwatch coming to the Nintendo Switch. And they were going to have a bunch of voice actors and things there, but they seemed to pull out at the last minute. And it's kind of interesting to me because after this, Nintendo's at least American PR division hasn't really said a whole lot about Overwatch since, despite the fact that this was a really highly weighted for game that they even promoted previously before this.
Telling.
See, and the fact that like they lent no insight as to why.
Mhm.
Like, did it still actually launch on the Switch?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
Is it available on the Switch now? So they did it without any hoopla. Maybe they were worried about protesters.
I mean, that's the only logical thing I can think of. You know, just more. Basically they were they were like putting up their own event for people to show up to and yell at them about the things that have been happening in like one of the probably the most populous, like concentrated populous city in the country.
Mhm.
Like you're just setting yourself up for a mob mentality to show up there in some ways. Just it would not have been a good thing, I think, for them to actually go through with this event.
Oh no, it's a
Yeah.
good thing they canceled this one because this is it's man, those voice actors don't deserve to get the hate that was going to come to them over this.
No.
Yeah. And I mean, I think I don't think we're gonna see any publicly accessible Blizz events for the foreseeable future. I mean, I know BlizzCon is coming up at the end of the month or the beginning of next. It's like November 1st and 2nd. So, I mean, if you want to go yell at them, they're going to make you pay for the privilege.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's kind of smart ish. But at the same time, it's kind of a really scummy move.
But yeah.
Well, I mean, it's interesting to me though because like you mentioned the voice actors, and yes, they definitely do not need to be put in the crosshairs of this because none of this is their fault
Mm.
at all. Um, that being said, though, Blizzard's uh, Blizzard definitely hasn't shown a tendency to show leniency to bystanders in this whole situation. You know, we had like last week. I know they released their statement where they softened the punishment on Blitzchung, um, but they also upheld they basically upheld a 6 month ban for the two casters as well
Mm.
on that broadcast who did nothing wrong in this situation. They literally hid underneath the desk because they understood the kind of like firestorm that was going to happen and wanted no part of it.
Mm-hmm.
They did not participate in any of this, yet Blizzard still feels the need to punish them. So honestly, I would not have put it too far past them to like not necessarily think about what putting the voice actors into a situation where they would be confronted by a large group of people protesting the event or protesting Blizzard in general. That being said, though, I think they did make the smart move in canceling this. It's still, I mean, it's a lose lose. You know, either you hold the event and you invite people to come there and ridicule you at what is supposed to be one of like your a huge event for you. You know, your most celebrated game in many instances is coming to a one of the probably the most popular platform right now, and you know like losing out on that sort of promotion, it really sucks, even though Overwatch basically sells itself in many ways. But
I,
by canceling it, you also sort of like admit that there is something going on and that you don't necessarily know how to handle it. Really trying to hunker down stuff ahead of BlizzCon because you know that you can't cancel BlizzCon.
No.
You can't. So yeah, like either way, they were not going to come out on the good end of this. But this is the best case scenario.
I will say though, like for the voice actors who were scheduled to attend, um, given that they had a whole 2 days notice for the cancellation, I would hope that they still got paid
Same.
Yeah, same
because
here.
like I know there have been like some massive upheavals in the voice acting realm. Couple of strikes here and there over the past few years, and they've really been fighting for some better rights. And so I would hope that they actually still got paid their appearance fees, despite the event being canceled, because like there are other gigs they could have booked
Yeah,
that they're not going to be able to rebook in 2 days.
no, I completely agree. Completely agree.
Yeah, and this doesn't look to be getting better. It continued over the week. Just the next day, we had Nathan Zamora. If I know your name, and I'm not a Hearthstone fan, I don't really watch much of anything, but I've heard of this man before, and he has stepped away from. He will not be hosting anything for the Grandmasters at all. He put out a tweet that is fairly long here. You can read it at your own leisure here, but basically Yeah, he also does not agree with what they've done, and Blizzard has historically held up, their core values previously, that every voice matters before this, and woo, I can't blame him for being a little bit on the mad side.
No, I
Yeah,
mean, sorry, go ahead.
I mean, like it's like he said, he's dedicated half a decade to this, you know, and he is one of the faces of Hearthstone. So the fact that he's walking away is really a good loss to Blizzard. Um, and I would hope that they're taking note over the fact that they are losing so many good people over their bullshit handling of this. That's literally the only way I can phrase it. So I'm really hoping that Blizz is taking notes and that they're realizing that hey, maybe I am the asshole.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I just want to throw out that he makes a very valid point that a lot of the people that are working at this, right, don't have the opportunity he has to just step aside. A lot of the people working this, that's their source of income, and they need that. So, if somebody continues to cast, hey,
yeah. I mean, oddly enough, I kind of know where he's coming from, in some ways. I'm not gonna get into that right now. But like, yeah, like I think that like, this falls in line with Brian's announcement a little over a week ago, where he basically said that he wasn't gonna be casting anymore, and like it makes total sense to me. Like, especially when it comes to once again how they treated the casters for the broadcast where Blitzchung made his statement. If they're not going to stand by people who clearly did not have anything to do with the situation, but are still being punished for it, how can you work for a company that is just able that is feels the conviction or the willingness to punish people like that, especially people that are in your job? Like, if they can do that to them, what do you think they would do to you unfairly in some ways,
mm-hmm.
It's really frustrating, and I can understand completely feeling that lack of respect from your employer, and just being, if you are able to cut ties with that and still make your nut at the end of the day, then by all means, like, you do not need to work in a place that makes you feel like you are not going to be supported, or that you are at risk of unfair punishment.
Oh, absolutely. Like any day you go into the office, if you feel like just being you could be grounds for termination, fuck that employer. Fuck
Yeah.
them in the ass. But continuing down the road, Overwatch did release for the Switch finally. And the critical consensus seems to be it kinda sucks. uh,
I'm not that surprised.
Yeah, especially given the fact that the Switch doesn't really have on its own a dedicated Ethernet connection that you can plug directly into. By its existence, it's a wireless device, unless you pay for a specific peripheral. So you play Overwatch standardly as it comes in the box, you're going to hit some real lag. As well, the game just doesn't really seem to have the proper feel to it, at least from my understanding. Every review I've read has said the same thing. That it's difficult to pull off moves as effectively as you can, even like on the PlayStation, much less, on the console where you have the classic, mouse and keyboard layout. But in this, it works, but the frame rate sucks, and everything feels just muddy. Like what you're doing isn't really being displayed in the game.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all by that. To get this thing running on the Switch's hardware, as good as the Switch's hardware is, um, like, they were going to have to make some technical sacrifices for this, and They did it in the places that they thought they could get away with it and still deliver the game's core mechanics fairly well. And I'm glad that, according to the review and other stuff that I've seen, like when you're actually playing the game, it does feel like Overwatch. It does look like Overwatch, but like a lot of the stuff, like it just does not. Obviously, it's not going to compare to other platforms you can play this game on. I think that like this game needed to come to Switch just because it's Overwatch and it's everywhere, and it needed to be everywhere in some ways. But if I would only suggest play this on Switch if the Switch is the only way that you can play it. Like if you don't have a PC that's beefy enough to run it, if you don't have a PlayStation 4 or Xbox One available to you right now, like then by all means pick this game up on the Switch. But if you have any of those other platforms available to you, you are doing yourself a disservice by playing this on the Switch.
Yeah, like I've got a pretty umphy machine, and even I experienced some texture popping, some lag, a lot of frame loss. Like, so I don't see the Switch as being like just by its nature not powerful enough to run this. Add to the fact like if you already own it on PC, you already own it on another console, why? Why would you spend to buy it on yet another platform? Um, Although, you know, if they've now gone, hey, we can sort of kind of make this run on the Switch, is anybody else worried that one of their big announcements at BlizzCon is going to be, hey, Overwatch Mobile? Because, I mean, they've done it with PUBG, they've done it with COD, so.
I mean, it's a possibility. I doubt that that's going to be something that they would announce this year if they're going to do that, especially considering what we're about to get to. But like, I could definitely see some form of Overwatch in the mobile market. I could definitely see that. I mean, you know, dipping back into some of the controversy here, they do have a part of the company is owned by Tencent, and Tencent really likes their mobile versions of games. So, like, it would not surprise me at all if they do that. Um,
It's probably going to be a tactics one.
I honestly like that would be fine by me. Like that, like I don't know. It's so odd because like I probably still wouldn't play it just because I'm not a huge mobile gaming person. But like if you make an Overwatch tactics game, like that will sell.
Mm-hmm.
That will sell on mobile very easily. I just don't think you cannot the way that PUBG and COD and Fortnite have like basically ported the same game in a lot of ways to the mobile market. That's not something that you could do with Overwatch, I feel. Because Overwatch like is so specifically tailored to how certain characters play, whereas like Fortnite and PUBG, COD, like you are given a blanket set of stuff to work with. Like it's every player is working with basically the same thing. I know COD has a little bit of differences in like I think they have some class differences in there, but like with PUBG and Fortnite, you're just going in there with your pickaxe, whatever guns you can find, and you're just doing your thing. There's no specific build outs. There's no specific play styles that are inherent to the characters that you control. I think that a lot of that would get lost in translation if you tried to port Overwatch to mobile in its current.
But if this had just been it for the week, this might have just been, it's not too bad. But then the pain hits. Congress in the United States has gotten involved with this now. A bipartisan letter from people that I never thought would come together on literally anything. We had Marco Rubio and AOC, Mike Gallagher, Ron Wyden, Tom Malinsky, all addressing a letter directly to Bobby Kotick over the suspension of Blitzchung. I never would have seen this coming in my entire life. That this group of representatives would get together to condemn Blizzard for their interaction and to say that this goes against everything America stands for. Holy shit.
I mean, I'm a bit of a cynic. Okay, I'm a lot of a cynic. Um, they might just be doing this to go, hey, an election's coming up next year, and we want to seem hip to the younger generation, because something that was floating around up here as well is this is the first year where the younger generation outnumbers the boomers by way of eligible voters. So they might be doing this along that lines of let's appeal to those new voters. But the fact they're also yelling at Blizzard really makes me laugh. So
Yeah, like I'm glad that this is drawn. I mean, this is inherently a political thing. This is
Mhm.
a international thing, and I'm obviously politicians are right to weigh in on this. I, I completely understand why they're doing this. I mean, China has been kind of like set up as this like straw man in a lot of ways, even though some of the things that they are doing over there definitely are straight up unadulterated evil, um, such as the systemic imprisoning and mass murder of the country's Muslim native Muslim population in certain places. So like I understand completely why they might latch on to this sort of thing and use it as political ammunition, to rail back against the Chinese regime. At the same time, though, some of the wording about like this is inherently against what America stands for, like them say that being included in this, while also looking at some of the issues that are going on in our country right now,
Mm-hmm.
like especially regarding some of the stuff about like free speech and about like civil rights and that sort of thing. Like I harken back to once again the case that is currently being mulled over by the Supreme Court about LGBTQ civil rights and the right to not be fired by your workplace simply because you are gay or trans or anything like that. Like there are still plenty of issues going on in our country right now that I feel like some of the holier than thou um, wording in the letter really speak to them just kind of latching onto a movement in a lot. And like there's some good to come out of latching onto a movement, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, like just maybe check some of the rhetoric before you throw into this right now, because like you have to understand there are still things going on where you sleep
Mm-hmm.
that are posing problems just the same as what is happening in Hong Kong now.
My my interesting thought is, especially with what's going on in China, I would expect this to come up in American debates as this continues. I would not be at all surprised to hear somebody vying for the president of the United States being asked what they think about what companies like Activision Blizzard have done so far to promote and to use their words, American values overseas. It does a little bit have a little sting of trying to have it your own way, right? Like this is them saying, "Oh well, but America is so much better than China and Russia. We have to be a little xenophobic against these people who tried so hard to change our ways of life." But still, it's a statement that really I think will hang with people, and especially some of them hearing this. Activision Blizzard is literally one of the biggest companies in America right now. Bobby Kotick makes, like, I think in the top 100 of any CEO presently in America, if I'm remembering correctly. Call me out if I'm wrong here, but that's bonkers. Uh, and hearing this maybe coming up, it's just strange to me.
Hmm.
My 2 cents.
Nah, not a bad 2 cents.
But yeah, coming forward from there, they've also had a few little tiny leaks of things coming out, and both of these, take it with your salt. Coming to us from the PC Gamer and Ian Boudrar here. It was mentioned that a upcoming art book for Diablo would contain artwork from Diablo 1, 2, 3, and 4 for the November um, issue of GameStar, a magazine honestly I've never heard of before, but apparently, like the Hasselhoff, it's big in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
And while there's been rumors and speculation about a Diablo 4 coming up for years, this is the first time I think anyone has seen this in print.
Yeah, I mean it's no surprise though. Like there have been a lot of rumors around it. Like basically after the whole thing that happened last year at BlizzCon with the announcement of the Diablo mobile game and everybody getting frustrated that nobody was talking about Diablo stage. Like it came out in that Kotaku report that they had actually been working on the game and had actually at one point planned to talk about it at BlizzCon, but then chose not to.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So like this comes as no surprise in some ways that the game exists, obviously, but I think it's kind of interesting that this is the way that it that the news started to leak out about it in some ways. So especially ahead of BlizzCon, whenever like they're really I'm assuming they're really hoping that the announcement of Diablo 4 will wash some of the bad taste out of a lot of people's mouths of the past 2 weeks.
Oh no.
So yeah, so I don't know how big of a story this honestly is in some ways because like we already knew about it somewhat and we were already expecting it to be talked about at BlizzCon. So, but at the same time, like it's always funny whenever some small little thing that that is meant to just like support a like auxiliary product is able to just completely jump the gun on your major thing. Like I always go back to Walmart Canada from a couple years ago. Like
Yeah.
this is just this year's like the latest like small scale Walmart Canada.
Yeah, I think like this might be Blizz's bid to go, all right, so they already hate us and our numbers are plummeting and we've really got to give them something so we don't get lynched. Because like people are leaving Blizzard games in droves right now after the bullshit that has gone on this year alone. Never mind the horrible tankage that happened at BlizzCon last year.
Mm.
Like between the layoffs, between the controversies, between the Blitzchung, like Blizz is found like just foundering right now. Like they're not doing well. So I think this is their attempt to go, okay, we know we're not going to sell out at BlizzCon. What can we leak that's going to get people to buy tickets? What can we leak that's going to get people actually happy with us again? And I think this is their attempt at trying to distract us. Like go, oh look over here, look at the shiny, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. And it's really frustrating that they're doing this. Because this is a very cruel carrot on the stick.
Now, let me throw out one of my favorite hot takes I've heard. Now, it's been an industry talk for a while that Sekiro may have been originally some work between Blizzard and From Software, potentially, with the idea that this could be a Diablo 4 and that some of the items from that may have come from that previous work that they did together. So, maybe by mentioning Diablo 4, maybe they're talking about artwork from that idea they had that never came together. It's a possibility. It's a weird one, but it's an interesting take.
I mean, yeah, I guess. I mean, if that'd be a far stretch to label something like that Diablo 4, though, especially whenever people already know that something with that title is coming. You know, I mean,
Fair.
honestly, I could see somebody trying to pass it off that way, but that is like a very large jump in some ways.
I mean, they have already flat out said that they have no plans for a major mainline announcement
Mhm.
for this year, which quite frankly is dumb.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you give us a Bethesda esque E3 2017 or 2018 6-second teaser, just show us the title screen. It'd go a long way.
And boy, if that one you had to take with a pinch of salt, like buy a whole Morden bottles for this last one coming out. From a streamer by the name of Metro, claims to have some dirt on an Overwatch 2 that is being worked on. Stating that the known StarCraft first person shooter was axed specifically for this to be Overwatch 2, those teams taken away from that. Stating that it will have PvE and PvP systems. There will be leveling changes, things that you can do without having to go into PvE battles so you can earn uh, those points, those good points. And that seems to be about it from Metro's claims. And there's not a whole lot of knowledge here on what's all coming out, where it may have come from, how they got their information. But he's been correct before. So it's an interesting thing. They did mention some things about how Tracer would play and things along those lines, but didn't give a whole lot of information, which makes me think that they don't have a whole lot, if anything at all. But it also wouldn't terribly surprise me if at this point Overwatch 2 was in development.
I mean, do we really need another one? I mean, just add this stuff into the existing. It's simple
Well,
enough.
well, I mean, the Metro does say that there's according to what their whatever sources they have, that it could potentially be treated more as an expansion where a lot of the current Overwatch stuff is carried over into it, just they're rebranding it, along with some new additional stuff. Um, that would be smart, although I don't know why you would call that Overwatch 2 in a lot of ways. You just add new game modes to it and like release it as an expansion or an add-on or something. Like that would be perfectly fine. Um, but the only reason why I would think that they would ever develop a sequel to Overwatch would be to take advantage of the new consoles coming out next year,
Mm-hmm.
to boost up the graphic quality on that. That would be the only reason why I would see that happen. And like potentially, yes, they could do that. Although I'm certain that you could probably just develop a new add those sort of developments into the game as they are already. But let's also remember Blizzard is the full name of the company is not just Blizzard. It's Activision Blizzard.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's one thing that Activision loves, it is iterations.
Oh yeah.
And money.
Yes.
Because,
And where do you
hey,
get
we're going to sell this at $60 a pop. So,
exactly?
budgets.
So I would not be surprised at all if there's an actual Overwatch 2 being developed. I don't think that that's something that will be announced this year.
Mm-hmm.
I it just feels really odd to me, especially considering how like that game is not that old. It's only about 4 to 5 years old at this point.
Which is short lifespan for Blizzard.
Exactly. Plus, you currently have one of the most more popular and profitable esports leagues going with the Overwatch League right now, with the game as it is, and they switched over. They switched metas within while the second season of the league was going on in the game, with the role lock system, and that's in the game now. And there was a lot of kerfuffle about that whenever it happened, and I just don't know if you would want to try and switch over to a completely different version of the game again so soon. I think this is something that will either be I think this is honestly something that you announce at the next BlizzCon if you're trying to do this for the new consoles, because those consoles still won't be out yet at this point next year, and it gives you a good month of promotion to build up to that. Should you decide to actually make a second Overwatch, I don't know. Like, I'm with you, Lindsay, in some ways that like this game does not necessarily need a sequel, but that's just the nature of the beast in some ways.
Here's your Activision.
Maybe they'll Fortnite it. And just
I'd be down for a black hole. I watched that black hole for so long.
And yeah, just a reminder that this is literally starting next week that we're talking about. A handful of days we'll have all of ye festivities for BlizzCon, and I can't wait to see, God, make this a shit show. Make this the shittiest shit show. Have them boo you when you come out with Diablo 4. Oh, wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be swell?
I mean, honestly, like, I don't like Blizzard. I don't like what they stand for anymore. But you can bet I'm going to be watching as much of the broadcasts as I can, sitting here eating my popcorn, drinking my beer, and giggling like a mad fool the entire time, because it is going to be an absolute shit show. What are they going to do? Start ejecting people from the con? That's probably going to be very sparsely populated to begin with.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. Like, I do not. I fully expect them to be ejecting people, depending on just the amount of people that do start piping up and voicing dissident opinions. So,
I mean, what if somebody shows up as the May in support of Hong Kong and tries to enter the costume contest?
Oh, that'll be very interesting to see.
What if a lot of people do that?
Oh, I'm pretty sure everyone that cosplays May that is not like strictly contracted by Blizzard will likely be in a Hong Kong version of that character.
I'm just imagining this army of Mays descending en masse to BlizzCon. And it is probably one of the most glorious mental images I've ever had.
But did you know there's other video games in the world going on right now?
Wait, what? There's something other than bashing on Blizzard?
Is it that black hole that we were talking about?
Hell yeah, black hole time!
That black hole, I tell you, I watched that black hole for 4 hours.
Seriously?
Well, I did. I had it on in the background while I was doing other things, but I had it on just in case. You never know. I wanted to get the scoop on this Chapter 2 thing that apparently now everyone has a scoop on because it's launched and it's going pretty well. It's apparently there's a fish. There's a fish you can catch and beat people with, and it deals out like massive damage. So, yay, massive damage fish. I don't know.
Ooh,
So, like,
IGN's mad at me because I have blocks on things.
So, like, massive fish that you can catch and then beat people with it. This is like the legendary fish in WoW all over again, isn't it?
I'd say yes if I knew what that you were talking about as someone who never played WoW. But yes, I'll go ahead and go that route. I'll agree.
Sure, why not? It's some Nat Pagel going on. Why not?
Damn that dwarf. Wait, was it a dwarf?
I think so.
I don't know. It's been like 3 years since I've touched WoW.
But yeah, it's now it's a very pretty trailer, but I'm going to tell you, I don't know a whole lot about Fortnite, so I'm hoping Brian can explain to me what I'm actually seeing here. How is this different from what's
Okay,
currently existing?
so one, it's a new map,
Mm.
and that is huge because basically Fortnite had been on the same map for the most part. There have been a few changes here and there with some different season events,
Yeah, there's been
but
explosions and things, right, that have
exactly,
changed.
like yeah, like different places have like different like places on the map have been changed and altered due to different things. But this is a new map, completely new map. Chapter 1 is over. That world has now been sucked into the black hole. Chapter 2 is now live with this new map that also introduces some new mechanics to the game. Like you're able to swim now. You can, like I said before, you can fish, and apparently, like one of the fish is like a devastating weapon. But also adds, I think some of the things you can catch also like add different perks or upgrades to your character. I'm not terrible. I haven't really delved much into Chapter 2 just yet, just because most of my Battle Royale gaming has been going to Apex Legends
Mhm.
as of late. Shout out that Halloween event. It's pretty good so far. But from everything that I've seen, like this is just basically a beefed up, better version of Fortnite that introduces some new things to the game. I mean, Fortnite is Fortnite as a game is intriguing in like how it's not strictly just a shooter, even though it is just a shooter. Like you don't have to be the best at FPSs to win that game if you're able to, if you have a mind for strategic construction and basically like there are other routes to go with
Mhm.
this game. And this update just kind of adds more of those elements into it in some ways. It makes the game a bit deeper. Um, but at the same time, it still feels a whole lot like Fortnite. You know?
Okay, so forgive me because I don't battle royale.
Hmm.
So I've never played Fortnite. I'm probably the only person on Twitch who streams who has never played Fortnite. Um, Now, all of this cool stuff that you can do, the fishing and what have you, are you doing that during a match? Or
Yeah.
can you
Yeah.
go out and explore the world without people shooting at your face?
Well, see, that's the thing is like you are doing this stuff within the match itself. The One of the misnomers about battle royale games is that you are always dropping into like a spicy situation. You're immediately just running around trying to find a gun so you can shoot the person that's right around the corner from you. There are definitely instances and areas on maps in every battle royale game that are like that, where you can really hone how to like, kind of get a handle on the shooting mechanics of the game and that sort of thing and get better in that instance. But there's also there can be a lot of downtime in those games where you're just like, running around. You're the only group or person in an area and you're running around a house trying to grab as much stuff as you can to move on. And you don't really run into anybody until like half of the people in the game are eliminated.
Mhm.
So like there's definitely a way that you could fit these sort of things into a game like you know I mean it's on a much smaller scale, but Apex introduced these supply bots now into the game where like you can drop in an area, be by yourself, and you see one of these flying by and you shoot it down and you get upgraded stuff, like so there's there's definitely quiet moments where these things could actually happen, especially if you're playing with, in like duos or squads, where you have people that can watch your back while you're doing that stuff. So yeah.
Because, like, I have lasted precisely one round in Apex and probably about 10 to 15 in Darwin Project.
Mm,
And I mean, Darwin Project I've played a lot more, but I've played as the director, so I've been game mastering. the whole thing pretty much. Um, but Apex, the one round that I played in Apex, I spent my entire time squeaking in panic, playwalking Escalus because he was running with me in a squad. And I was scared out my wits the whole time because, like, to me, these battle royale games are one big jump scare. And
In
I don't like it.
in many ways, you're not wrong. Like I still get very tense with that sort of thing, and I think like anytime you jump into a new battle royale game, like you do have that kind of period where you're getting comfortable with it, you know. And that mindset, that fear element is right there in that time period. I was the same way during my first like few hours with that game, and in some ways I still am every once in a while now. But you know, it's just a matter of getting used to things and just getting a handle on how the game works in a lot of ways. So like and also you do have to be a fan of that style. It is very, in some ways, like I remember playing PUBG for the first time, solos, and basically equating that game to a horror movie because I was holed up in a bathtub with a shotgun, just afraid to run anywhere for fear of someone just turning a corner and gunning me down and just me losing. You know, like
Exactly.
yeah,
Like Darwin Project, because like you literally are crafting absolutely everything. There are no pickups. I would run a trap build and I would hunker down in a corner of the map, hidden by a bunch of trees with like three traps sitting in front of me. So that way, if anybody came at me, I knew. And then I could like ping them in the face with an arrow. So these games where it's run, pray you don't run into anybody, hope that this next room has something that can shoot. I no, no, can't, no.
I have to give some props to Epic in this whole how they rolled it out. They didn't give patch notes. They didn't tell people what specifically to look for. They just kind of went, "Hey, go the fuck in there. Just go in. Have fun. See what's out there yourself. You'll figure it out. Fuck off. If you lose a match, go ahead. You'll learn this new map, this new world that we live in. And that's a really cool way to be." But this is not our only people coming up with new stuff and new changes. We've got Riot also in the news. Because they just had their big anniversary, so they did a whole bunch of really strange announcements. Starting off, they announced a new first person shooter to come out that has nothing to do itself with League of Legends, which will be the first project that they do that has no direct ties to League. Since it's new and in super early development, don't expect to hear a whole lot more on this. But they are starting from the ground up, looking into network integrity and really making sure that you cannot cheat in this game, which I think is pretty damn huge of them to go with that being their leading strategy into how this is going to look. There's some very early gameplay that they put out. And you can see here, thanks to PC Gamer and Sean Prescott here, they put out some really good information here for you to see what this will look like really overall. And some of these abilities that they've put on display for this are really interesting to me, honestly.
It looks kind of like a more stylized version of Overwatch. Um, and you're right, like the new abilities and such look freaking incredible. Um, I know this is Riot trying to compete with Blizz directly in their own arena. Um, I'm really interested to see where this goes. I'm interested in the price point when it actually launches. Um, and it's definitely going to be something I keep an eye on.
Yeah, it's interesting that you make the Overwatch comparison. I was gonna say it looks like a mix between like TF2 and Overwatch in a lot of ways, based off like the abilities and some of the graphics here. Obviously this is early build, so
Mhm.
they'll probably only get better in that instance. But yeah, like it makes sense that Riot would start to kind of diversify a little bit. Like I know League is still huge, but you can't like survive as a one game studio alone, like over the long haul of ways. Especially whenever like Riot has the money that they have, like they could throw their development, their financial and development power behind anything right now. Well, hence why we got so many announcements from them at their anniversary.
Oh, absolutely. And, this is, they said it themselves, this is years out, but
Yeah,
it's definitely coming. If I were to be held down and have to take a guess of when this is coming out, I would say probably late 2021. We're not seeing this next year at the very least. Maybe 2022, but this is years out for them.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, they are still focusing very much on League. They're still perpetually doing like updates and new releases within League as well. So, although, I mean, that one clip, this one here, where they summon the robot,
Mm,
this strikes me very much as Ash from Overwatch. Her ultimate is to call in Bob, who is
mm.
her robotic sidekick. Um,
yeah.
so it's going to be interesting, and it's cool seeing it as first person versus. Is Overwatch third person?
No, Overwatch is first person.
Okay, it's been a while since I poked at it, so
Hmm.
um, but yeah, like it looks clean, which is really interesting. The maps look freaking huge with a lot of great little hidey holes.
Oh, absolutely. I'm. Hell, this might actually get me to try out a FPS because just a lot of the ideas presented here definitely give me TF2 vibes, and I'm for it. But it's not just that came out of that hour-long talk. I believe it's actually a little bit longer than that. But also, they're announcing a card game. Because
To the shock of no one.
yeah, every company's got to have their own Hearthstone like.
Well, I mean, you've got Wizards of the Coast with Magic. You've got Bethesda with uh, what is it, Oblivion Legends.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you've got Blizz with Hearthstone. So yeah, why not? I mean, like when you look at it, they're all ripping off Magic, and I'm a physical Magic player. Like I don't play the video game, but I have far too many cards cluttering up my home. So, oh yeah, and Kilborn makes a good point. CD Projekt Red releasing Gwent,
Mm-hmm. Was just
um,
thinking that. Thank you, Kevlar.
which I have tooled around with. It's fun. It's grindy, but it's fun.
I don't know. This isn't really a big needle mover. Personally, it's just like, okay, cool, another card game that I probably won't touch because I just don't play card games personally. That's a straight up me thing. You know, I understand why people would be totally interested in this, but for me, it's just like, okay, cool, moving on.
I'm just surprised that there's another card game coming out after how badly Valve tanked with Artifact. Um, I didn't think the market was really holding for card games anymore, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, here's the thing, like, it's not that the market is tanking for card games; it's that Artifact was a bad card game. And also it was tied to Dota 2, and the Dota 2 community didn't really want that, I think. and which is interesting that that's okay. This is the one interesting thing with this for me, is that looking at how the Dota 2 community looked at Artifact and their opinions of Artifact and how that affected Artifact, I'm very curious to see how the League community looks at this game, and and how that might impact how well Legends of Runeterra can do. Like if the League audience embraces this, because I honestly I think they will, because like the League audience has a sort of devotion to Riot that is odd in some
Oh
ways,
yeah.
but understandable, because like people that play League, a lot of them only play League
Hmm.
or seldom play other games. They especially do not play any other MOBAs.
No.
Like League's their thing. So if they find something that they can latch onto and transfer from that game to another style of game, like I think that this could have a lot of success. Um, and also if they just make a good card game, because like Hearthstone in and of itself is like not the best card game in the
No.
world, but it has that Blizzard backing and has the Blizzard fan base that transferred to it, and they play it sometimes out of spite because like it's not the best thing in the world, but it still is a Blizzard thing, you know. So like that same sort of connection could play out with this and make this a very large.
Now, see, there's one paragraph in this that raises the same red flags that Hearthstone started to raise when it started getting bigger. And it's that um, they want it to be more accessible and steer clear of the frustrating microtransactions like Magic and Hearthstone. Um, you can buy any card directly rather than shell out for a randomized booster pack, which is cool, but you've already made it pay to win. And that's what Hearthstone became. Like, I've never dropped any money on Hearthstone except to buy one expansion because I was excited about it. Um, the fact that, you know, you can pay real money to buy additional packs of cards really pisses me off because I don't have that kind of expendable income. I don't have the like just hundreds upon thousands of dollars to drop on a computer game.
Mhm.
And for that reason, like I stopped playing ranked games in Hearthstone very quickly because if you miss like 2 blocks of release, like it's like Magic in real life, if you miss those new blocks, you can't play competitive anymore. You're not allowed because you don't have any cards that qualify. And so you're stuck having to rebuild a new deck every 2, 3 months from scratch. And it's bullshit.
Yeah, like the first few months that Hearthstone was out, it was pretty cool that you could put it on your tablet, right? And you could play Hearthstone, and that was nice. But after a while, it really got hard to win a game, and I don't think I got any worse to the game. I think it just hit the point where people had started to have really good cards, and I don't have the time to grind as much as would be needed, and it's money.
Exactly. I mean, I betaed Hearthstone back when it was announced. Like, I got to play the beta for it, and I loved it because everybody was on equal footing. Now, if you're a new player starting in Hearthstone, you're fucked from day one.
Mm.
Just play the PvE style events. Don't bother playing competitive. You're not going to do anything.
But the last thing to come out of this announcement, and the one that really interests me, was Project L. Now, they've mentioned a little bit back in Evo, but there's going to be a League fighting game that is going to come out. Of course, still in early development. But that's going to be really interesting, especially if they're taking directly League characters, seeing how those movesets transfer to a side-on fighting game like this.
Yeah, it will be interesting just because, like, you have so many varied classes of character. Like, I got roped into playing League for a little bit, and I was playing Miss Fortune, who is ranged DPS. So I don't know how that's going to work with the hand to hand fighting game, but it'll be interesting to see. I mean, you might have some people that get really frustrated because, like, their main doesn't translate to this style of game, so they're not able to play them.
Well, even if they're like, here's the thing though, like if their main doesn't translate to a fighting game, like would that character have even been controllable in a lot of ways in the fighting game? Like if they wanted that character in there, is there actually a way that you can make it still feel like the way that you use that character offensive in a fighting game style setting? Like I think they're going to be very very smart and very selective with which characters they bring over, and do not I do not doubt that there will be new characters introduced with this thing. That being said, though, there are plenty of there's a long history of ranged PS characters in
Mhm.
fighting games. Um, I
Yeah.
remember even going back to the Sega Genesis, Green Arrow and Justice League Task Force frustrated the fuck out of me. So you have that sort of you have a lot of the different elements of the characters in League can be translated over in some way. It might not be the same way as they are in the base game, but it honestly it allows for more creativity and more exploration of what characters could produce in a lot of ways. Like this genuinely excites me, even though I am not that familiar with many League of Legends characters. So
Well, I mean, I don't think there's anybody who's really familiar with all of them, given that there's over 140 of them now.
oh yeah, no, I'm with you on that. There's no way you can be like completely up on all of them, but I think that they'll be very judicious with who they put in this game, and they're smart. They'll know who can make that jump and who can't. So I do put some faith in Riot in that. I'm curious to see more. I don't know when more. I would assume like, as the fighting game esports circuit starts ramping up again, coming around to the beginning of the year, we'll probably get more information. Like them confirming the existence of the game at Evo speaks to probably next year's Evo being a time to show more. Like maybe we'll get some good a good footage dump
Mhm.
of the game in some way. So I'm genuinely curious.
Yeah, and League has so many fucking characters that they can really pick and choose on who gets in this.
Not to mention a wide swath of DLC characters to sell you.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, anyway,
But that does it for League. One more item just really on our gaming list, and this one instead is a game being put on indefinite hold. Which, man, this is a last minute announcement for an indefinite hold on a game. With Divinity Fallen Heroes was expected to be out next month. Instead, is basically coming out question mark. Will it come out? We don't even know at this point.
This has
I
absolutely shattered me
really.
because, yeah, I loved Original Sin 2.
Mm,
Absolutely adored it. And I want more. Give me more. I've tried Pillars of Eternity, and it's too. I hate saying it this way, but it's the best way I can do it. It's almost too complex and too grindy and way too micromanagey for me to actually enjoy the story. And I mean, I'm a huge Critical Role fan, so Pillars of Eternity 2 has a Critical Role pack, and that made me super happy and want to play the game. But give me another Divinity. Please give me another Divinity. I needs this game.
so I'm curious. Did you even know that it was coming out? or it was supposed to be coming out soon?
I had heard whispers, but nothing like firm. And then
Okay.
when I saw this, it's just like, no, you give me hope and then take it away, you suck.
I'm not even going to lie. I didn't know jack shit about this game, to be real with you.
Like I had heard about this game, but I did not know that it was like the release was coming up. I did not know that it was gonna be coming out in like November. So like I thought this was gonna be in development for like another year. So this really like was both surprising, but also not like off-putting in some ways. I was just like, oh, okay, like that's cool. I'm glad that you're making a tactics game, but like also like I had no idea that it was coming out soon. Maybe it's a good thing that you got delayed. Although putting this on like such an indefinite delay without like any kind of really end mark is kind of frustrating. It makes you think that maybe they're just gonna move a bunch of people all over to Baldur's Gate 3 and get that game out the door, and then maybe come back to this.
That's my thought, and honestly, I would think Baldur's Gate 3 would be the higher priority to begin with anyway, because everyone has been kind of frothing over that one. Even I'm kind of intrigued by the idea, and I even played Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, so. Yeah, that is out there on the hold, but hey, at least we'll get Baldur's Gate 3 faster and better, more than likely.
Faster and better, you say? That sounds like you're talking about a certain way they're going to deliver that game. Maybe something having to do with some stuff in the air. What's up there in the sky?
That's a hell of a weird transition, but let's go with it.
Roll with it. We're going to the cloud.
Hell yeah, we're going to the cloud. Stadia Founder Edition, they have finally given us a release date. It will be November 19th, 2019. Nice numbers there.
Wow, that's pretty soon. Like, I didn't think it'd be this quick.
Yeah, and their list of games for it is great. You've got Red Dead Redemption 2, Mortal Kombat 11, Destiny 2 on it. It's a fairly robust package they're talking about here, so it's interesting.
I like how it's like laptop, desktop, and certain phones and tablets, i.e., if you're an iPhone user, you probably can't play.
Oh, it's gonna
Sorry.
come to them pixels first. You and I both know that. It will be, you can do this on the Pixel. The other phones, who gives a shit? You're a founder. This is fucking open beta.
Yeah, I can see it hitting the Pixel and the Razer phones first, and possibly the Asus ROG phone.
Now, if you want something, though, that will give you some real concern that came out from this, the wireless controller is going to be hugely limited at launch. Unless you're playing directly with your Chromecast on the big screen, you're going to be using a USB-C to plug in, which kind of ruins some of the biggest things about this, because part of the idea was just take your controller, you're playing on the TV, and then, if I need to leave the living room. Okay, well, just turn on your phone and start playing there. You can go anywhere with this, except kind of can't.
Yeah, it makes me wonder how you're supposed to connect your controller via USB-C to your phone.
Yeah, that's a really fucking weird one. So I'm going to have, a USB to USB-C cable here with my phone, like,
Well,
to the power?
Yeah,
A lot of modern
probably.
phones do use the USB-C connection on it. I know my phone does.
Mm.
So like I guess you could plug that into the one jack that's on my phone to do it that way. But like it's still like super frustrating. Just
Um, it'll probably be in the form of, and I hate this, a proprietary dongle. Back in the day when micro USB was the most prevalent, there were certain brands that had brought out USB sticks for your phone. So you could have a flash drive for your phone. So, like, if you were because a lot of phones you could get like Microsoft Office on. So if you're working on something on your computer, you could throw it on a USB and then use this dongle to actually transfer it to your phone without having to email it to yourself, like in case the document or the file is too large. So I could see that being a thing where they have a converter dongle that allows you to actually hardwire a controller into your phone.
Hmm.
And it's worth mentioning as well. Basically, if you get a founder release of the Stadia, it's going to come out basically in the order that they received it. So just because you have pre-ordered it, and you could pre-order it tomorrow for what it's worth, doesn't mean you're getting it necessarily November 19th. You'll get it when they're damn well ready to send it to you.
Hooray!
Doesn't that just make you so excited?
I know. There is a little bit of a silver lining to this whole thing with the lack of wireless usage outside of just the Chromecast. It's like they're at least testing it to make sure they get everything right before they roll it out on other platforms. The only problem is, why didn't you get that fully done before you went to market with this? Like, why are you basically beta testing your controller whenever you're releasing the entire thing to people?
Yeah, this is a real thing that will have real games, and boy, I can't imagine that some of these big publishers will be too happy with Google. If this comes out, it sucks and no one buys their game.
Um, on the topic of the controller though, is it just me or is this like a softer, gentler version of like the bastard love child of an Xbox and PS4 controller?
Oh, totally.
Oh,
Like
absolutely, but it looks
the white
pretty.
one looks, yeah, the white one looks like it's made out of marshmallows though, and that it's going to be squishy when I hold
It's the cloud in your hands.
it.
Yeah,
Oh,
we'll see about that.
is the Konami code on the back of that? Was that what I just noticed?
It might be.
uh, no.
Up, up, down,
Actually,
down,
that was
left, right, BA start. Fuck off!
yeah, shit, it is. Oh my god. I thought it wasn't because it was upside down, but yeah, yeah.
Maybe
Why?
maybe that's how you get it to work wirelessly on another platform. Is you have to enter the Konami code, and then all of a sudden it's like, you are like the master. You figured out our rules. You can play this on your phone now without any stupid dongle.
Another thing they could do is it could actually just be a Bluetooth connection.
Well, that's what it is, but apparently they haven't quite figured out how to make it happy with the Bluetooth on the phones, so.
No, I don't know if it's necessarily a Bluetooth thing though. I have to look more into this, but I think that like they might be using Bluetooth as like a baseline, but a lot of this is like built off of their own like Wi-Fi connection. Like the whole thing is like basically being able to move it between platforms.
Right.
And like they don't feel comfortable being able to move it between platforms right now. So like it's only going to be usable through the Chromecast Ultra. And like that's I have to do a little bit more diving on that, but I don't know how much the Chromecast Ultra, if that utilizes Bluetooth capability or not, or if it might be something else.
Now, I think with the Chromecast Ultra, it's going to be Wi-Fi, but I think that may be part of their issue overall with going to multiple devices will be how well you can dock with that sort of technology. So,
Yeah.
eh.
Okay. Yeah, it's just like.
I'm excited to fuck with it. That's
Yeah.
all I can say.
It's a curious little tool. Yeah.
Yeah, though I'm wondering if they pull the Hello Games on this and just promise too much.
I mean, there's always that potential. Like I'm reserving judgment until I get my own hands on it some ways, but like also like I mean, it's not good to come out of the gate being like, "Yo, we got this thing that's going to move the industry forward. It's the future of gaming." Also, the controller only works through the Chromecast Ultra at launch. We're sorry. It's really weird for like that to be the messaging around it. You know, why not just make sure that everything is good to go before you put this thing out? Google has that reputation of making missteps at launch with items and then quickly abandoning them. I don't think they're going to quickly abandon this, but you don't want to have like you want to minimize that reputation that Google has cultivated over the past decade as much as you can, especially when introducing a brand new technology.
I think the other thing is too, like, there are no other console releases coming out this year.
Hmm.
So they want to step in and fill that void just pre-holidays, so that way everybody else has the I need to have this mentality.
But speaking of that good cloudy goodness, Steam decided to give us a little something interesting too. It's in beta presently, but you can now play your couch co op games with other people. And it's fairly straightforward. Select your game, remote play together, invite your friend in, and boom, there you go. Your local multiplayer only game, and only one of you have to own that game in order to do said couch co op into online co op play.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot really to say about it other than it's kind of fucking neat.
Yeah,
Although,
it makes me. Sorry, go ahead.
their last little bullet point: play together across PC, Mac, and Linux.
Mhm.
So I can go cross OS.
Yes, yes, you can. Because literally
Yeah.
you're just streaming the game, and the other people can input buttons. That's it.
Oh, the bandwidth.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
the bandwidth.
That's the only caveat. You better have a damn good connection because, yeah, it's really going to depend upon what your up is. That being said, let's finish off today with some retro old shit. How about it? Dropping in. Woo. What did I do? Oh, I added an extra 3 at the end of this one. My bad. Anyway, thank you, Link Plaquette. So, you may be aware of the Internet Archive. They have now surpassed 2,500 archived classic MS-DOS PC games. And while, while as he says, a whole lot of them are the hottest of the hot garbage, you do get some nice stuff, and you even get Night Trap, which, you know, isn't nice stuff, but there you go, you could play that.
I have always been a big fan of archive.org.
Mhm.
Like, always. The only gripe I have is yes, you have access to all of these MS-DOS games. You better have played the original because there's no instructions. Good luck trying to figure out how the fuck to play half of these.
Well, I mean, the good thing about having the internet right there is that you definitely look up information on these games, and there's a plethora available. I would hope, at least for most of these, some of the more well-known.
Yeah, and, you know, DOSBox can be a little bit on the complicated side, but at least they're hosting it all for you, which is nice.
Well, the other nice thing is like, yeah, like you run the vast majority of these direct through browser,
Mhm.
which is really cool. Um, the fact that like they're from an era where you'd buy a game and read the instruction manual in the back seat of the car on the way home, so you knew what you were doing as soon as you sat down. But the fact that like these are now available, my childhood is showing, and I am so stupidly giddy.
I'm not gonna lie. I kind of just want to go play Descent right now.
You could do that right now and also be talking to us at the same time in the same browser, no less.
That's very
You'd
true.
be hearing a lot of swearing.
Yep.
Nothing wrong with that. But also speaking on the classics here, so they are releasing the old Aladdin and Lion King games. The Sega Genesis release, a couple others. Let's see the full list here. The Game Boy version of Aladdin, the trade show demo of Aladdin,
Jesus.
Lion King for both Sega and Super Nintendo, and the Game Boy.
What? Why? Why the Game Boy versions of these games?
It's a rightful fucking question. Just to remember how shitty the fucking Game Boy releases were, I'm not sure.
It's because we're all creatures of nostalgia, and the live action Aladdin and the live action Lion King fell flat compared to what they used to, like what we had all hoped they would be. So they're trying to, this is like their apology. It's like, hey, we fucked up your childhood. So how about we bring your childhood back?
See, that's the thing though. Is like both Aladdin and the Lion King. I remember playing these games on the Genesis and being so fucking frustrated with these games. Like they're just like, I don't know. Like I don't have me personally. I do not have a ton of nostalgia for either of these games beyond just like booting it up, playing through, and like, oh yeah, that's why I didn't like fucking playing this shit.
Oh, I love
And
the
then
Aladdin game.
Yeah. Ugh. I just have nightmares as a kid of like trying to get through that game.
I never owned a Genesis, so
Now, the really interesting part of this to me is that they're also putting a final cut version of the Genesis releases into it. Basically, they're adding things, taking away things, and reconfiguring things that were bullshit in the original to make it a little bit more palatable for play. And you can choose your level and difficulty. So that's actually kind of interesting to me that they're kind of taking this old game and they even talked to the original developers of this and got their feedback on things that they wish they had gotten right the first time. So I kind of dig it. I would love to see a version of especially the Lion King that had some shit in it. That might actually be a little bit more playable on the bullshit levels. As
I don't
well,
know,
yeah, there's
Sorry,
going to be
go ahead.
new content here. I'm for it.
Yeah, like I mean, maybe I'll try it again. Maybe I'll get beyond where I was as a kid, where it's like I don't want to. I just want to play more Streets of Rage. Get this shit out of here. So like I've
Just-
grown. I've grown as a person. Maybe I can take on the frustration now.
I was gonna say you're older, you're wiser, you're slightly more patient. Your coordination is
Slightly.
better, although your reaction time drops with age. So I mean, good luck.
We'll see.
But let's drop into our last story of the evening. This one actually kind of interests me in a weird way. They are making the people that made some. It's called Analog, the company. They made some really state of the art versions of the NES, Super NES, and Sega Genesis before, and I never bought any of these, but I listened to a lot of collectors, especially Pat the NES Punk, his CU podcast. They talk about this company a lot and have nothing but praise for what they've put out for this. And I also saw them cover this as well. This is like it's a $200 version of the original Game Boy with, you know, a backlit, updated LCD screen. It looks and handles like the original Game Boy, but will allow you to play other consoles as well, such as Game Gear, Neo Pocket, Atari Lynx, etc. And has that classic Game Boy design to it, but you'll notice there's L and R buttons in a very useful place, actually, here on the back. As well, you've got your 4-button front to better play your Game Boy Advanced releases, and especially will be necessary if you're going to emulate Atari Lynx. On top of all that, you get your nice little SD card slot. So, hey boy, if you're one of them little cheaties, want to come out here and not play with your official cartridge, you just plug in that SD card and you're good to go. Hey, you even got a Game Boy Link port.
Okay, I really like this product. This is sleek. This is like stylish, and Analog has a reputation behind behind them. Like this, if I wanted to drop $200 for a mobile gaming thing, and I had like cartridges readily available and stuff like that, this I would be so into this. I like that they include the SD card slot, though. The SD card slot is going to make this a lot more viable because, you know, retro like retro gaming collecting is still a huge thing. We just had our retro gaming expo out here in Portland over the weekend, so like still a huge thing, obviously. That being said, though, like I have a good crop of retro stuff. I have nothing Game Boy. I have nothing portable. So having an SD card slot where I can load things that way goes a long way to making me actually think about maybe looking at this in some facet.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. $200 is a lot to ask for me to drop on this, especially when I have a Retron 5 downstairs that doesn't just play Game Boy and GBA, but also plays, you know, Nintendo, Genesis, Super Nintendo. So if I want to play those games, I can. But you know,
It's the
so
mobility
pretty.
of it.
Yeah.
It's the mobility of it. Yeah.
I mean, I've still got my original Game Boy Pocket with an original release of Pokemon Blue that is in damn near mint condition.
Mm.
Ooh.
That is the only Game Boy game I ever owned because back then I'd rather have stuff for my SNES and for the N64. So this, especially with that SD slot, the fact that it also has a dev console built in, I mean, this just, I want one. This looks like, you know how, remember back in the day when cell phones started to be a thing, you'd get like the luxury editions that were released?
Mhm.
This is like the luxury edition Game Boy. And honestly, the only reason I'm not tooling around with my Game Boy Pocket now is one, it takes AAA batteries and burns through them so fast. And two, you have to be in damn near ideal lighting to play that thing. I don't know how we survived when we were younger, but a backlit screen is super appealing to me right now.
Yeah, I mean, I've got my SP and I've got a decent collection of Game Boy games. So, you know, I can always just break out the SP and it's pretty good, but this is sexy, but also it's $200 and fuck you.
Well, you also figure that's going to be $200 for you guys. It's going to be like $350 or $400 for me.
Oh yeah, and especially for Kevlar. My tongue does not want to do words, but Australian imports of U.S. electronics. I don't feel good thinking about it.
um, I mean, for what I'd pay for this, I could buy a Switch.
Yeah, you could buy a whole ass Nintendo Switch for the price of this. And while this is real pretty, man, $200.
I still want one.
You're not wrong, and I may end up buying it anyway. This is maybe one of those things that just like niggles at the back of my head and says, "Hey, you gotta get it, right?" I don't know. I've already got ways to play it, but you could play it with this.
You could play it with the new sexy.
Well, that does it here for the basic stories here on Mr. Video Game Live Super Show. And I do want to mention, if you take a look at our Twitch page, down at the bottom, you'll see we've got a Discord, and we're going to try to use it a little bit more now. If you want to suggest games to us, or not games, but stories to cover, we're trying to take in requests now through the Mr. Video Games Discord, through Video Game News. We'll be posting as well the news stories we find, so you get a little bit ahead of us here on Mr. Video Games. So if you're interested, join the Discord. As well, keep in mind, we do go to YouTube at youtube.com/CBGB Games and all of that fun stuff. Don't you just love promoting yourself? But we can't end a Mr. Video Game Live Super Show without declaring who the hell is Mr. Video Games for this week. And if you do not know what a Mr. Video Games is, I feel so bad for you, son. Mr. Video Games is the greatest, the worst, the most amazing, the surprising, the life-changing person, place, noun, thing that you look at this week and you went, that's video games right there. And our Mr. Video Games of the week, returning champion Akumi Nakamaru, with this delightful happy post that made the whole internet squeak. She wants to bring Okami back. She even visited good friend here, tweeted at Capcom, "Let's make Okami happen again." With Okami's vision happening, we want this to happen. Everyone wants Okami to happen. Capcom, are ya fucking listening? Make it happen. You've got your developers already in the bag.
I mean, this woman is the epitome of adorableness in gaming.
Mm-hmm.
I love her. I love her to pieces.
I wasn't aware of her before E3, and then she came out, and the whole internet went, "Oh, our hearts."
Right? And so, I mean, Okami still stands as one of my absolute favorite games of all time. Hell yeah, I want more. I mean, it is a gorgeous game with an amazing story, with super balanced gameplay. It's just challenging enough to make you want to tear your hair out, but then 20 minutes later you've gone, I feel fulfilled again. So, yes, give me more. Give me more. Need more. Make it happen again. Do it.
Nah, I'm into it. Give it.
Yeah, I mean, what else can you really say? This, when you get 77,000 likes on, just a random account like this, people love Okami, and I don't know what an Okami will look like in the modern day and age. A Zelda game looks very different than it did when Okami came out. But I'd love to see what their take would be, especially, getting Capcom to work together with Platinum Games. I'm so for it. But that is Mr. Video Games for October 21st, 2019. Thank you everyone who came, who chatted, who saw, who lurked. Especially thank you to the lurkers, because God bless all of you. And of course, Kevin Games coming in, chatting with us today. But, of course, this has to be at the end of the day. Lady Merowyn, do you have any final words for us this evening?
Okami needs to be a thing. Blizzard doesn't. Hyang 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 Goose. Because thank you so much for Kelvorian Gaming sharing that lovely tweet in my Discord about the Goose mod for Resident Evil 2. That might actually make that game playable for me because M Goose. I haven't been streaming lately, and I'm sorry. I'll be back soon. Shit hit the fan in my personal life. I'm working on it. Just keep an eye on my my Twitter at @elmerowin. And yeah, as always, be kind to each other, love each other, try to bring some joy into the world if you can.
Wonder Boy, what you got for us this evening? What's your final words you want to leave us with?
Oh Lord. I'm excited for BlizzCon. No, I genuinely am. It'll be interesting to see how that whole thing goes down. I don't know. It's been an odd week, heavily dominated by a couple of stories that I think show the wide range of what games mean in today's culture. That being said, I will go into my own motion now. So you can follow me at WonderboyOTM, read my stuff over at Outsports.com and PaceMagazine.com. And also just recently launched last week the new queer pro wrestling podcast on the Outsport Podcast Network, LGBT in the Ring. First episode went live last Thursday. It'll be coming out every Thursday going forward. I'm really happy with the response to the episode, and I'm really excited to keep that thing going for as long as I possibly can, because there are a lot of interesting voices in queer pro wrestling and a lot of stories to be told from those people, and I hope to bring those stories to a very eager and wide populace. So definitely check that out. Anywhere you get your podcast, just look up Outsports, and you'll see the where you can download that.
Alright, we have been Mr. Video Games, a 2-hour-long podcast, but of course we had to talk shit about Blizzard, and that's at least an hour easy. Thank you everyone for coming. Good night, and have a pleasant tomorrow.
Bye.